Welcome to this week. There's a book in my Nook. The first book that I'm going to talk about this week is Panic by Sharon Draper. The book is checked out at the moment, so I'm just going to show you what the front of the book looks like here. We actually used this as our book club book for this month, and all of the kids really, really liked this one. And this is the story about several different kids, actually. There's Diamond, who is the main one that it's about. There's Justin, there's Lila, and there's Mercedes. And they're all dancers at this dance studio. Well, Diamond and Mercedes have a recital that night, so they're going to the mall to this dance store to buy some new tights. Well, Mercedes wants to try something on, and Diamond says, I'll go ahead to the food court and get us a place because they're going to eat before they go. Well, she goes over there and she meets this guy. He's really nice. He's in his 40s. He said that he's looking for his daughter. They talk for a few minutes. He tells her his daughter's new at the school. She doesn't have any friends. And he starts giving her lots of compliments. And he says that he is a casting director for this movie. And that all these famous movie stars are coming in, teen movie stars. And he shows her some pictures he has of supposedly his daughter and these movie stars together. And he says, I think that you would actually be great for this movie. I'm looking for a fresh face. Would you be interested in auditioning? And she's like, well, I'd have to talk to my mom about all this. He's like, well, give her a call, blah, blah, blah. Well, she goes to get her phone, and it's dead. And she's like, well, it just has a little bit of juice. She's like, I don't know. He's like, well, I understand. You don't have to come, but, it's tonight or I have to cast tonight. Well, she texts her friend Mercedes really quick and says, I'm going with this guy, blah, blah, blah. He says everything's fine, Well, long story short, he's not who he says he is. Just because he looked like this really nice-looking, upstanding guy, drove a nice car, he takes her to this house, this great, big, beautiful house. So she's thinking everything seems on the up and up. She goes inside, and he says, yells for his daughter, yells for his wife. Nobody comes. He said they must not be back yet. They went to the airport to pick up these teen actors. Well, he asks if she wants a drink. He gives her a drink, and he puts something in the drink. Well, and this is basically about what happens to her. And she wakes up, and she's down in a basement in this, bedroom in the basement. And she doesn't have any clothes on. She's tied to the bed, and she's 15. And he proceeds over the next few days as he has her to use her for making pornographic videos. Oh my God. He keeps her drugged, has different men come into the room. It is kind of graphic. At the same time, you're following what her friends are going through because they've all figured out, her family, that something's terribly wrong. She's been abducted. So they have an Amber Alert out. They're all looking for her. One friend, Mercedes, is the one who was at the mall, feels like it's all her fault. She shouldn't have tried on this leotard, which there's no way it was her fault. There's no way she could have known. So you kind of, have her story. Then you have Layla is another one of her best friends. Well, Layla on her own is going through an abusive relationship with her boyfriend. So as she's stressed out about this, her boyfriend is deciding that he doesn't want to listen to it. He wants it all to be about him, and he's proceeding to abuse her anytime that she doesn't do what he wants. Justin is also a dancer there who likes Layla. He kind of thinks this is going on. One day he sees it. He intervenes. They have a fight, and she still goes back with her boyfriend, and then he chokes her, and he almost kills her, and she's like, I've got to get out of this relationship. So it's kind of about
Which
the
one's
story.
Layla?
Diamond's friend. Diamond's the one that's abducted. So you have 4 different characters, and it kind of goes back and forth from all the different characters that are friends with Diamond, who's abducted. And I'm not going to tell you if Diamond manages to escape, what happens to Lila. You'd have to...
Does it get resolved in the end, or is this a series?
Yes, no, it is resolved in the end. There is no series.
Okay.
It is resolved in the end. All of their stories are resolved to some point. So... a lot of my kids liked it because it was different stories, and they felt like it really kept their attention going from this person to this person. Mm-hmm. I did have a couple that said that they wished it would have focused more on Diamond and just what was happening with her and Layla, and maybe not had Mercedes and Justin really in. Others said, oh no, Justin was my favorite, or Mercedes was my favorite. But it's a really good book. It definitely, talks about Just because somebody looks not like your stereotypical pedophile abductor, that has nothing to do with it. I mean, if any of you know the case of Ted Bundy, that's a perfect example. Nice looking guy, does not fit the stereotype. So that's what happened to her. I mean, he said everything right to make her believe that he was a dad, he had money, that he was successful and married and everything, and that's not the case. To find out he was wanted in a bunch of different states as a pedophile, and he basically takes a girl, does this, and then disappears into another state.
They have a series on A&E. It's called Kidnapped that focuses on incidents like this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's not only just girls. It doesn't only
No,
just
it's
happen
not.
to girls.
No, it doesn't just happen to girls.
Right.
It's more with girls, but not
Right.
just with girls.
Right.
And this is in the young adult department. Like I said, we do have it. If you like some of these abduction kind of stories, I have a couple others you might like.
True life stories.
Yeah, except you may find them. That would be a good one.
Now that is not based on a certain incident.
No, it is not. Some are, but that one is not. This one I thought was, I have not read this, but when I read about it, I thought it was really interesting. This is Stolen by Lucy Christopher.
I see, it almost looks like that could be a series. Butterfly.
Yeah, but butterflies, I didn't think of that. This takes place where this girl is 16 and she's at the airport. And I don't know why she's at the airport. She's going or coming from somewhere. And this, once again, really nice looking young guy comes up to her and he abducts her and he takes her out to the Australian outback. He says he's in love with her and he wants her to live out there with him. And she's out there for months. And this book is written in like a letter to her abductor from her about how she's feeling. And there's some, from what I can understand and what I've read about, there's some mixed, how do I say it, some gray areas, because he is her age. He's very nice looking. He's very good to her. So at times there's a line crossed as to whether she hates him or she has feelings for her. And you hear this a lot. I think there's even a name for that syndrome, but I can't think of what that
what it is either.
Where sometimes they can develop feelings for their abductors.
They say that was the Patty Hearst thing.
Right.
Where they sympathize with their abductor.
That's what this story is about. I haven't read it. We don't have it in our young adult department, but you can request it. But I thought it was a different abduction sort of case where he's actually someone she probably would have dated in real life. And here it is, he's abducted her. So that's another one. Then I don't know if you read this one or not. I know Living Dead Girl, is that one? Okay. Living Dead Girl is by Elizabeth Scott. I've had a lot of girls read this and really like this. And this is about a girl that is 10 years old. Her name is Alice, and she's abducted. He keeps her and abuses her until she's 15, and then he starts talking about getting rid of her, killing her. She's ready to die. She just wants this over with. That's how much she's went through. But then she finds out that's not what he has planned. He wants her to abduct him, another young girl, before he kills her and take her place. And she is not going to let that happen. So this is her story as to how she can keep that from happening. I mean, it's not a very big read either, but a lot of my kids have loved this book, including my own daughter who loved it. So, like I said, well, obviously we have it here. So that's another one about abduction. And another one that we have but is checked out. I don't know if I don't think I took a picture, got a picture of it. It's called Such a Pretty Girl. Have you heard of that one? And it's by Laura Weiss. And this is where, this isn't abduction, actually this is abuse, where this girl is abducted by her father. He's sent away to prison.
Are they divorced?
No.
Oh. Okay.
He's sent away to prison. The courts tell her, oh, you'll be 18 by the time he's released. You'll be safe. That's not what happens. She's 15 and he's released. And her mom lets him back into the house.
Oh, my gosh.
And it's about how she's going to deal with that, how scared she is, and how that is. So kind of some abuse, abduction stories. And that one's checked out a lot.
A good movie along those lines is Taken. That is about
with Liam
his
Neeson.
daughter. That is Taken. She's going to go to France with a friend. And they're going there, I forget, just for
break, spring break
or something like that. Anyway, innocently, she asks this guy to take a picture of her
young
and a
guy.
friend. A French guy.
Yep.
And later he says that they're going to be having a party and if they would like to come. And
where are they staying? I think.
Yeah, where are they staying? That he'll send a car or something to pick them up or something like that. Well, next thing you know, and her dad is a retired.
They don't really tell you what, but he was high up in the like in the military.
Sort of like
Covert
CIA sort
affairs,
of like
sorta,
thing,
yeah, uh-huh.
spy sort of like thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he's dealt with cases like this, and the way the apartment is set up, it's like a U shape. And so she's in the bathroom on one side of the apartment, and she sees her friend being abducted across the like way.
Because it's glass, yeah.
Yeah, in the living room. And so she knows what's happening. So she immediately calls her dad. Her dad
crawls under the bed. Yeah.
Right, and her dad tells her what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and he asks her to leave the phone on the whole entire time so that he is able to hear the guy's accent, and then the rest of the movie is about him trying to find her.
Yeah, it's very, very good.
Very good. And then there's a Taken 2.
I haven't seen Taken 2, just Taken 1.
Mm-hmm. So it's very, very, very good. Very good.
So that's my first one. So we'll move on to you now.
Okay, well, I did since when this airs, what will be Monday, June 30th, I did 4th of July. And the first book I have, I'll start with Easy. It's in our children's department. It's in the Easy Fiction. It's called Aaron and the Green Mountain Boys. And because I read these books so long ago.
And it's by?
And it is by Patricia Lee Gouch. And this book is based on a true story. And it has to do with the year is 1777. And 9-year-old Aaron, right here in the middle, wants to join the war. But because of his ability, he is able to shoot a blackbird 100 paces away, which is 250 feet or almost, it's 50 yards short of a length of a football field.
Oh, wow.
And he figures that he would be very useful in the battlefield because of the skill that he has, but he's always constantly told no. And the only job he is given is his grandpa owns a bakery. And so the grandpa says, what I want you to do is I want you to go out and cut wood for the fire so that we can bake bread for all the soldiers. And that's what their job was, is that they were going to they were going to bake all this bread, and then the bread wagon comes and picks up the bread and takes it to the soldiers. Well, one day there's a very, very bad storm, and the roads are so muddy, because back then it was dirt roads. The road is so muddy that the bread wagon cannot get there to pick up the bread. So the girl says, well, we are going to have to go do it ourselves. And so Aaron's like, yes, finally. I am going to hopefully see some action. Well, they get there, and of course, it's General Washington, and General Washington comes out and says, oh, thank you so much for the bread. He says, but because of the storm, he says, we are waiting for the Green Mountain Boys to come, and they haven't come. And he says, the opposing, not the opposing team, the British. The British are entrenched, and they're going to fight us tomorrow, and we are very outnumbered. And he says, if the Green Mountain Boys don't come, he says, I'm just going to have to fight it and hope for the best because we're severely outnumbered. So Aaron's like, well, I'll volunteer because I can shoot, the distance. And he speaks up, and the grandpa hurry up and shushes him and says, be quiet, because they don't want this 9-year-old going in. And the general says, what did you say? And the grandpa says, he needs to get home and bake bread. That's what he needs to do. Well, when they get home, the Green Mountain Boys are at their house. And they have marched a long way. They are tired. They had marched in the storm. All their weapons are wet. So you'll have to read the story to see if the Green Mountain Boys are able to get there to help General Washington.
Never heard of the Green Mountain Boys before.
You haven't?
No.
I guess they were very popular in like Virginia.
Yeah, I never heard of them.
Yep. Okay. Looks like somebody needs to read her history.
Oh, this is the person who didn't know what Chernobyl was. So
well, that's not really history.
That's history.
Well, okay. But not an important war history.
Sure, those people that were there, it was important.
Well, you wouldn't be here if they...
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Another book? The next book I have is George versus George, which is by Rosalind Shainzer. And this is in our juvenile nonfiction section. And it has to do with George Washington and King George III. And it shows the reaction and the actions taken by both sides when one would make a move. Like when King George started imposing the taxes on the colonists, like the Stamp Act, the tea tax. Then that, of course, caused a reaction with George Washington and the colonists. And they decided, you know what, we are tired of being taxed, because you've heard the taxation without representation. They had nobody in England that was standing up for them. And so King George was basically doing whatever he wanted to because there was nobody to put a stop to it. And so George Washington said, you know what? Enough's enough. We're done with this. And of course, based on all these reactions, then George Washington would make a move like saying, we're not going to pay this tax, which led to the Boston Tea Party. Well, that resulted in King George saying, whoa, wait a minute. These Americans are getting a little too big for their britches. I'm going to send some troops over there. And then you had the start of the war. And that's what this book is all about, is how the reaction was on both sides when the beginnings of the war and when the war broke out. Very good book. Very, very, very good book. It's very good at explaining, you know, what do I want to say? The reactions taken by both sides. And then the last book, well, not the last book, but another book, I didn't have a chance to read this, but it's highly, highly recommended. It's called Johnny Tremaine, and it's by Esther Forbes. And this is actually in the juvenile section, it's in the adult section, and it's also in the young adult section. Because I think, because it starts out when he's younger and it goes through all his life, that they think it pertains, pertains to all
different ages, yeah.
Thank you. In this book, the year is 1773. And Johnny is on his way to becoming a highly skilled silversmith. But one day when he is working, silver molten falls on his hand and severely burns it. Well, he can't become a silversmith anymore. However, it does say something about he could have if he had the right surgery, but back then, you know, it was very hard to find surgeons that were skilled in that, plus the money it would have taken. So after several rejections of other jobs, he does finally end up working for the newspaper. Well, he eventually gets caught up into the politics that were happening at the beginning of the war, particularly the Boston politics. And he has to pick sides between the Whig, which was the colonists, and the Tories, which were the loyalists to England. And it also causes him, because he's now having to choose sides, he does pick a side, but you'll have to read the book to find which side he picks. And it also makes him reevaluate the relationships that he has with people because of the side that he has picked to be on. And now war has broken out, and you'll have to see how Johnny reacts to when war is broken out. I'd love to read it. I'll have to read it sometime, along with umpteen million thousand other books.
That's something, it's really hard for us every week to choose what we're going to read. There's so many to choose from. We both have lists so long of what we want to read that it is hard to decide what you're going to read.
Right.
Okay, my next book is Cursed by Jennifer Armentrout, and I read this on ebook form. We don't have the actual book here at the library. And this is about Ember, and Ember is...
Wait a minute, we don't have it here at the library, but is it in the system to be requested?
Yes, it is in the system.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
But like I said, I read it in ebook form, which there is available also. And Ember is in a car accident.
Ebook through our website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ember's in an accident. And basically, her and her father and mother are all in the accident, her little sister. Her and her father die. Ember does. But her sister somehow brings Ember back. She has the ability to bring things back from the dead. So she has brought back...
Ember or Amber?
Ember is this girl's name.
Ember.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're Irish, and this is Ember. Okay. Her sister, I can't think of her name, is Olivia. She brings her back, but is not able to bring back her father. You find out later why that is. She's also brought back, she brings back her hamster Squeaky. She brings back a cat. She has the ability to bring things back from the dead.
The mother?
After the accident, after the accident, the mother knows that Ember died, and she can't grasp the idea that she's not dead.
So the mother was not in the accident?
She was.
Oh, she was?
But she wasn't.
Oh, her.
Yeah. So she is basically just a vegetable. She's at the house, but basically Ember is taking care of Olivia, who's 5. The mother just lays in bed all day. The father was killed, and she sees that her daughter, she can't recognize that Ember is there. She thinks that she's hallucinating. So she has just become, she's non-functioning, basically. Well, Ember was left with a bunch of scars on her arm. And her eyes, since being brought back, have become very, very pale. So the kids at school are calling her a freak, that she was damaged in this accident, and she has to wear gloves all the time. They think it's because she has these scars. Well, what happened was when Ember was brought back, she now has the ability. Her ability is when she touches anything alive, she kills it.
Really?
She doesn't mean to, she doesn't want to, and she found that out accidentally by as soon as she got home picking up the family cat. And so then anytime she touch a plant, so she can't touch her sister can't, you can touch clothing, just no skin. So she has to wear gloves and make sure that, in school nobody touches her, so she has to stay away.
So if you touch her, you'll die?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was maybe only if she touched.
No, it can't be any skin to skin contact.
Really?
So she's totally isolating herself. Of course, everyone at the school calls her a freak, and she used to be really popular. She's trying to take care of her sister. The money from her dad's life insurance policy is running out. Her mom is basically a vegetable. Well, this one boy that she used to date has, I don't know if he still has feelings for her or whatever, but he has become to tormenting her since this accident. He says awful things about her. He follows her around, calling her names. It's like he just can't, he's just a bad person, I guess. Well, she's at the grocery store with her little sister getting groceries because she does all the things that the mom doesn't. And he comes up and starts harassing her in the parking lot. And she's like, you need to leave me alone, whatever. Well, he pushes her up against the car, but she has on clothes. But then he becomes aggressive, as in, he's going to take it farther, if you get what I mean, and puts his hands under her shirt, touches her skin, and he drops dead in the parking lot. So now she's panicked. Oh my God, I've killed somebody I didn't mean to, even though he's horrible. I never meant to kill anybody. So her sister's little sister in the car screaming because she knows what she can do. This guy comes out of nowhere, knows her name, and is like, let me in the car, let me help you. And she's like, I don't know who you are, and speeds away. Next thing she knows, later that day, she's, trying, she's like, am I going to go to prison? What's going to happen? 2 guys break into her house and knock her out. She wakes up and she's like in this lodge way in the mountains. This kid that she had seen one time at the library and talked to him, he was one of the only people that was nice to her, he's there. He starts talking to her and says that everyone there has abilities, and that actually his dad is the one in charge of all these kids with abilities, and he's been watching her for a couple years, but he couldn't just take her because there was a mom. So he has, since she killed somebody, feels like he has to intervene. He has come in and he has taken her mom, and her sister to this white place in the mountains. And there's other kids there with other abilities. But the other kids, they don't even want her there because they're like, she's too dangerous. We accidentally touch her skin. Well, Hayden, who is the boy of the son of the father who took her, the one that she had seen at the library, he's infatuated with her. He really thinks that there's a way that he has abilities too that have been deadly in the past. He's learned to overcome him and control it. He thinks that there's got to be some way she can. So he's the only one that's nice to her. So she starts trying to work with her powers to try and control it. There's got to be, they have found with all these kids, there's a trigger. And that is what makes them do what they do. If they can control that trigger, but you got to find out what the trigger is. You understand what I'm trying to say? You also find out her little sister tried to bring back the dad and could not bring back the dad. The reason Ember was brought back, she's always had this ability where she was going to, when she got older, be able to, some of them develop abilities at different times. Some are born, that she always had that kind of like hidden in her. So that's what allowed her to be brought back. She also finds out later on that there has been other people in her family that have hidden that they've had abilities. I'm going to tell you, I was shocked at the end because some of the people you thought were good aren't. Some of the people you thought were bad are better than what you thought. It was some complete turnaround as to what happened.
Sounds like a good one.
But somebody is after her and they want her dead. And she's trying to figure out who it is. She has, I'm trying to think, at one time, so she's out in the woods by there walking and someone starts shooting arrows. And she gets shot in the arm with an arrow. They were trying to kill her. She tries telling Hayden that she thinks it's somebody there at the compound. He's like, there's no way anybody here would ever do that. We all support each other. So then she feels like she can't even talk to him about the fact somebody's trying to kill her. So you'll have to read the story to find out who it is, why they're doing this. But it was really good.
Is this a standalone book too, or is this part of a series?
Standalone book.
Okay.
I did 2 standalone books.
Good.
I know that's hard to find nowadays.
I know.
Now, Jennifer Armentrout has wrote a lot of other books, and she has wrote some series, but this book was a standalone. So, but really good, and it really keeps you interested
as of now,
in going.
because sometimes authors go back, and a
Yeah,
standalone
this
book
has been several years ago.
5 years
so
later can
she's
become
working,
part of a
like I
series.
said, on other series. So I can't remember some of the other series, but I know there's several that are really popular. I think one's called The Coven. I think about witches, and I can't remember the other one, but yeah, she writes about supernatural usually. So, and if you like books that talk about abilities, I have Shatter Me. This is a series by Tara Moffey, and this is a really unique series too. This girl also has the ability to kill people with a touch. She didn't know it until she was older. She accidentally is at a store. This little boy is crying. She goes to comfort him and she kills him. And what she does is she literally sucks the life force out of him into her and makes herself stronger. So she has been locked away in a prison. And she has not been allowed to have any sort of communication. I think it's been for over a year. No talking, no anything. She has total isolation because they don't know what they're going to do with her. Well, this is like in a futuristic society kind of too. She's finally taken out of this prison, and the I don't know if he's really the king or the prince or whatever who's in charge, just decided he's going to use her as a killing machine, basically.
Oh my gosh.
Well, she doesn't want to do that at all. It's about her, fighting against that, and she decides maybe she can use her ability against him instead of for him.
Against the king?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, one thing about this book series that is extremely different, if you notice, there is words crossed out. Throughout the whole book, it's even on the back, it's like she'll think of something, no, that's not right, and then it's crossed out. You'll see it constantly. Like on the back, it says, I have a curse, crossed out, I have a gift. I am a monster, crossed out, I'm more than human. My touch is lethal, crossed out, my touch is power. So that's kind of how the book. In the beginning, I'll admit I had a little trouble with it. Constantly seeing these cross-outs.
Because at first you think, is there something wrong with the book?
It's just weird to see all these cross-outs, but then it gets so that you don't even,
I've seen
it's
books
just
like that before.
part of it. But it is a little different. And this is, I don't know how many books there are. There's Shatter Me, there's Ignite Me, there's another one. I keep wanting to say there's 3 or 4 in this series, and we do have all of them here. They're a really popular series. And another one, and I loved this book, is called Graceling by Kristen Kishore. Loved this book. Also about a girl with a superpower. And this takes place like back in the medieval times. And she is actually the niece of the king. And you'd think she'd be living this life of privilege and everything because of that. Well, he finds out her ability is that she cannot lose a fight. And what I mean by that is back then when you had like duels or whatever, she can instantly find the weakness and defeat you, whether it's hand-to-hand, weapons, whatever. Nobody can defeat her. That is her power. She is undefeatable. So, of course, to him, he's going to send her to attack and assassin all these people. Well, he sends her out to this other, because they have, different geographical areas that are run by different kings, and they're warring with each other. He sends her out to kill somebody there. She runs into another assassin who has a superpower different than hers, but they have an instant attraction for each other. So it's kind of about what they end up deciding to do, her power. There is a spin-off book. I wouldn't really say that it's a sequel. It's called Bitter Blue, and it is about a character in this book.
Oh.
So kind of like a spin-off, I would say, more
than... But it must
than...
be an important character to warrant a spin-off.
Well, I mean, it's a character that's very young in this book, and the second book is when they're grown up, I guess you could say that. And it's called Bitter Blue, and I've read both of them. They're both very good. So if you like girl empowerment, that's kind of what all 3 of these are about.
And this is the first book in the series?
Yeah, like I said, it's not even really a series. I mean, they're considered standalone books. You really don't have to read Graceling to read Bitter Blue. It just gives a little short thing in the beginning about who Bitter Blue is and what it's about. It's just the one character.
Oh, so there's not another book after this in that series. You just go to the spin-off series.
Yeah, well, there's just a spin-off book called Bitter Blue. by Kristen.
And there's no other book following that one.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
I take that back. There is another book called, I think, Fire. And it's about the same world
Mm-hmm.
and about a girl that has an ability. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I know what you're saying.
But they're really not what I would consider series.
So it doesn't follow a sequence. You don't
Right.
have to read one to understand what's going on.
I don't think
with
so
the
at
next
all.
one.
And I mean, it's not like the same characters are in all of them and it continues where it left off. It's not really like that. In fact, between this one and Bitter Blue, there's a huge age gap, a big, difference in years before the next book.
But in, what's it called, Bitter Blue?
Uh-huh.
Does it refer back to this one?
A
of when
couple
this
times
character?
it mentions a couple things, but it's nothing that you couldn't read Bitter Blue
I
and
see.
understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, this is really, really good. And if you do want to know the full story, I would read this one first. And then I would probably read, you could either read Fire or Bitter Blue next. But I would read this one first.
So where's Fire fit into the
Like I said, it's the same world. They talk about some of the same
characters?
some of the same, like the lands. Do you know what I'm trying to say? But not really the same characters.
So where would Fire fit in?
Like I said, it wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter?
This is the only one that started it all, I guess you could
Okay.
say. But the other two could.
So basically, start with this
I
one.
would probably start with this one, but yeah, the other two it really wouldn't matter. They
Wouldn't
stand
matter.
kind of alone. So,
Okay.
but yeah, really good, really well written. Really enjoyed this. So,
I don't know of any movies that relate to that. Unless you want to read like
I guess Firestarter is about a little girl that had a power. Stephen King.
I never saw that movie.
Oh, really?
Carrie.
With Drew Barrymore.
Carrie had an ability.
Yeah, but she became crazy. These girls are more
Well,
about empowerment.
but-
You know what I mean?
Well, like Cursed, she didn't become crazy until she was antagonized.
Well, she never became crazy.
Well, no, she never became crazy.
Yeah.
But Carrie always had that ability, but her mom, I think, hid it from
Right.
her for such a long time until she became antagonized.
Firestarter's about an ability and a little
Did
girl
you see
that
the
has
movie?
it. Mhm.
I
With
didn't
Drew
see
Barrymore
it.
years ago.
I didn't see it. And there, of course, there's tons and tons of movies about like some of the Greek gods, like Thor and Hercules, that have these that are supposed to be immortal, but have these
Of course, there's also X-Men.
right,
All the
right,
mutants and X-Men
that have these
powers.
abilities that, at first they are unbeknownst to them until some tragedy happens. So, okay, well, continuing along my theme, because that's all I did was read 4th of July books, or should I say Revolutionary War books, because I am a huge history buff. I love history. And I don't necessarily want, when I say I like history, I don't necessarily want a blow-by-blow account of each war. And with this book, which is in the adult section, Dawn's Early Light. I got to pull it up because, once again, these books, I read them a while back. And when I start reading other books, sometimes that takes the place in my mind and kind of pushes these back. And so until I write them down, I'm not for sure what's happening in some of them. I'm getting confused with some other books.
Until you start talking about it, then it all comes back.
Right,
That's how
then it
I
all
usually am.
comes back.
Right, yeah.
And like I said, this is Dawn's Early Light by Ellsworth Thane. And it's an historical fiction. It does have some true events, but once again, they've been fictionalized to create the drama in the story. And I am telling you, this is so good.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
And that's adult, you said?
This is in the adult section. And this takes place in Williamsburg, Virginia, right before the war is ready to break out. And John Day has just arrived by ship from England. And he was coming to America with his father to record the events of what it was just like living in America. Because, living in England, they had heard all the stories about the colonists and everything, but none of the English people really wanted to go over there. Now, there were those who, what do I want to say, had family in America, and they would come visit those families, but then like in the summer go back to England.
Right.
And then come back later to visit with the families, because those were the ones that were very loyal to England, but they had family in America that was loyal to America. So they had to like split their time between going back and forth. Well, John Day, with his father, that was basically what they did for a living, is that his father was like a historical event writer. And he would travel to France and he'd travel to Germany and all these places, just writing down events that were going on in those countries at the time. And John Day would accompany him. And John Day, of course, learned how to speak fluent Latin, fluent French. There was like 7 languages that he knew. And so when they came to America, of course, he accompanied his dad. Well, sadly, John's dad dies on the way over to America. And so now John's like, what am I going to do?
How old is he?
He's like 21. They don't really give you an age, but it's estimated like around 2021.
Okay.
And he's like, what am I going to do? Because he's never really had a job because he's accompanied his dad the whole entire time. And he's basically done, since he had better handwriting, he basically, his dad would dictate stuff to him and he would write it down. So he's like, okay, I'm with no money. I'm with no place to stay. What am I going to do? Well, luckily they were going to meet a good friend of the family. His name, I think his name was St. John. Anyway, St. John is waiting for him when he comes off the ship. And he says, well, where's your dad? And he says, well, my dad's dead. And he says, well, you can come live with my family and me. And let me look at my place here. Is willing to help him out. But he has a job. And he's like, it's okay that I'm going to stay with you, but I really need to make my own way, And he has plans of always going back to England. This was just like a temporary thing, but until he can earn some more money to go back to England, he's got to find a job. Well, the schoolmaster at that time was 93 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because nobody else wanted to be the schoolmaster. And so they said, well, even though this guy isn't dead yet, we're going to kind of like push him out of the way. Because we really want somebody young in there to start taking over. And so John's like, well, I haven't really taught school, but you know what? I'll give it a shot. And they were very, because back in that time, it was very useful to know Latin. For whatever reason, I have no idea.
They used it a lot on medical, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, they still do for medical things, but
right.
That's about it.
But and French. They were very keen on him being able to speak French. And because I think a lot of people, not only were people from England coming over, but there were people from France coming over, and there were people from Germany coming over. So they thought that it was going to be very useful for him with all these languages to be a schoolmaster. Well, he one day, him and his best friend go to a restaurant, and they're sitting there eating, and George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and John Hancock are in a back room having a meeting. Well, this St. John, his best friend, is really good friends with these guys. So when they come out of their meeting, St. John calls them over the table and says, hey, I've got my friend here, John, from England. And like I said, Washington and them come over to the table, and they want John's take on what's going on in England because he just came from there. And they ask him what his feelings are about war getting ready. If war was to break out, what are his feelings about it? And John doesn't quite know how to answer because he's loyal to England. He has plans of going back to England, and he doesn't really quite know what to say to them. Well, as we all know, life has a way of throwing in its twists and turns. And like I said, he has become the schoolmaster, and John has developed some relationships with some of the kids from the school, especially these 2 twins called Tibby and Kit. And he feels this closeness towards Tibby that he just can't quite understand. Well, eventually war does break out. His best friend, St. John, goes to fight for America, but St. John has a girlfriend named Regina. Regina is a loyalist to England, and of course, a little tiff breaks out between her and her boyfriend because he's going off to fight for America. She doesn't quite understand how he can fight against his home country of England. Well, John starts having feelings for Regina. Regina starts having feelings for John because John's a loyalist to England. So now he has this relationship with Tibby that he just can't understand. She's 9 or 10. He's 21. But he can't understand why he feels drawn to her. You'll have to read the book because eventually John has to pick a side. So you'll have to read the book to find out if he goes back to England or if he stays in America.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's your basic, what do I want to say? I don't know. Your basic, without giving the book away.
Love triangle, obviously.
Yeah, basically a love triangle, but throw a little kid in there.
Yeah, figure out
So
what
I
that's
don't know
all about.
Yeah, I don't know if you call that a love triangle. Of course, the movie, highly recommended, is The Patriot. I thought this movie was very good. It's gotten bad reviews because people said that it was not accurate in its portrayal.
No, my husband has watched it so many times. Oh my goodness.
But Mel Gibson, who plays Benjamin Martin, has a has a past with the French Indian War that he's trying to keep
secret.
Especially
from his kids.
Because he's a single dad with 7 children. And of course, when they're talking about war, he keeps saying, we don't really want to do this. You really don't want to go to war. And I particularly do not want to have to go to war. Well, his oldest son, Gabriel, played by Heath Ledger, decides he's going to join. And he goes off to fight, but he comes back injured. Well, while being injured, he also brings back some correspondence. Well, while he's at home recuperating, a British dragoon comes, and I don't really know what the difference is between a dragoon and a soldier, but that's the word they use, right. Dragoon. I don't know what that is. I should have looked it up. Anyway, he comes back, and not only is Gabriel's dad helping, the colonist soldiers, but he's also helping the British soldiers. He has no dog neutral. In the fight. Yes.
Yeah, he's neutral.
And anybody that's hurt, he's going to help. Well, when this dragoon arrives, he says, oh, no. I want all my British soldiers off of this plantation right now. And when he discovers that Gabriel is from the opposing side, and he has learned that he has brought correspondence. Thank you. Back, he calls him a traitor. And he's going to haul him off, and traitors were hanged. And, of course, Mel Gibson's character, Benjamin, steps in and says, no, you can't do this, I was helping your soldiers just as well as him. He was just injured, I was just helping him, and tries not to say it is his son. Well, his other son comes out.
He's like 13.
Yeah, 13. I can't remember if he gives it away or something is said.
Yeah.
And it is discovered that it is his son. They take him away, and as this dragoon is leaving, he just shoots his other son that came out just for the fun of it.
Right.
For no apparent reason at all. Well, of course, Benjamin, Mel Gibson.
And it kills him.
Kills him. Mel Gibson says, or Benjamin says, no.
It's done.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I have now picked a side. He goes to rescue his son, and his secret comes out.
And full force.
Full force. And...
It's a very good movie.
Very good
it
movie.
Is. Even though I've seen it a lot of times.
Watch it because
it's very good.
He does rescue his son, but it doesn't end there.
Right.
He, like I said,
he has a lot of kids. First of all, like
right.
you said, and his wife has already passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So
he picks a he picks a side, and he goes to fight. And you'll have to see because he's going to seek revenge for the death of his son. So you'll have to see how
it all plays out.
How it wreaks revenge.
Yeah.
And just to give you a little side note, we do have children's patriotic songs in case you have a 4th of July picnic coming up and you need something for the kids to do. And also there was another book. This is a juvenile nonfiction. It was called Buttons for General Washington, based on a true story. It is a Quaker family. And Quakers back then, it was against their religion to fight. Well, their oldest son has decided he's going to fight anyway. He goes off to the fight. The family says, we've got to protect him. So they concoct this, I don't know what to say, but they become spies. And so the father will go into town and he listens to what the British are saying. He comes back home. They've developed this code. He gives the code to his mother. The mother sews it into the buttons of their 14-year-old son, and he takes the message to his brother that's fighting with General Washington. Well, one day on his way to meet his brother, he gets into a scuffle with a friend and loses a button on his coat. Well, he doesn't realize he's lost the button until he's halfway there to his brother. He realizes he's got to go back to get the button, but when he goes back to get the button, a British soldier is holding it. You'll have to see if the British soldier finds the message and if they are hanged as spies.
Sounds good. Okay, well, that's our pick this week for There's a Book in My Nook. I'm on vacation next week. Yahoo! So there will be 1 week that we will be down, but I will read plenty during that week.
There you go. And hopefully, I don't know, in my case, will be a little more rehearsed. I don't know. Maybe.
She needs a break.
Yeah.
So vacation maybe for both of us. So,
Get my books in order.
so we'll see you in a couple weeks. Enjoy your books and your movies.